What's up, guys? Welcome back to Daniel Talks Football right here on YouTube. I am Daniel and we are back with another video. In this video we are going to be doing a tier list which is for every Premier League club's window. Now, as you can see on screen right now, we have 6 tiers for this, obviously made on Tier Maker, the GOAT of all tier lists. We have 6 tiers. These are A, B, C, D, E and F. Obviously, you know, the classic grading system. And we are going to be grading every single Premier League club's window. Now, the first club we will get into is, let's do Chelsea. I'm going to put Chelsea in B. Chelsea have done an awful lot of business this window, bringing in players such as Carney Chukwuemeka, Raheem Sterling, Slanina, Wesley Fofana, obviously, Cucurella, Koulibaly, Aubameyang, Zakaria on a loan as well. And in terms of the outgoings, you know, they managed to get, you know, Timo Werner off the wage bill. They managed to get Emerson out to West Ham. They got Gilmour out. He didn't seem to, you know, work with Tuchel. Obviously, you know, we're not going to see how that works with Potter. And they also got Romelu Lukaku out on a loan, which is a big thing as he was causing a massive issue within the club. They spent a lot of money, and this is why I just can't put them any higher than that B tier. You know, Wesley Fofana for 70 odd million is a lot of money. Cucurella for 60 million, again, it's a lot of money for someone that will be competing with Chilwell. It's not fair to say he's going to be a backup, but he is competing with Chilwell for that left back spot. For 60 million for someone to come in and compete, it's a lot of money. You know, Sterling for 50 million. Sterling's a very good player, but is he worth 50 million? I think Chelsea, they've had a good window all in all, but I can't bump them up to that 80 because I feel like they've spent a lot of money, too much money in certain areas. And I still feel like, you know, they didn't get that beat. I know they got Aubameyang in, but, you know, he's 33. He's not going to be there for the long term. They didn't get that big name striker in, you know, say an Osimhen or someone like that, a Vlahovic. I know he's just gone to Juve. But a big name striker, they didn't end up getting that in, which is why I will put them in the B tier. Next, let's do Wolverhampton Wanderers, shall we? Wolves also had... Did they have a busy window? Not particularly. I mean, Matheus Nunez came in from Sporting for around 40 million, which is, you know, a massive fee to spend, but a very good player. Gonzalo Guedes came in from Valencia, and I like Guedes a lot. I think that's a really good signing. Collins, obviously, Kalajic, Hee-Chan Wang was done in January, I think. Boubacar Traore, sorry, and Diego Costa also came on a free. In terms of outgoings, they lost Gibbs White to Forest for that massive transfer fee. Dendoncker also left Vinagre and Bolly, as well as people like Sace. I'm going to put Wolves in the C tier. I really like their incomings. I think the signings of Nunez, Guedes, Collins, you know, every single incoming they brought in is good. Kalajic is a really good player. I know he's got injured, but he's a really, really good player. Costa we'll have to see what Costa ends up bringing. It's just depth-wise. You know, they lost Bolly, they lost Sace, and they brought in one centre-back to replace that. You know, they lost Dendoncker on deadline day and didn't particularly replace him. So I feel like because of the lack of squad depth and because of some of the squad players that they've lost, which they then haven't been able to go out and replace, I'm going to be putting Wolves into the C tier. Next up, let's do Leeds. Now, I really like Leeds' window. And I'm going to put Leeds into B. Brendan Allenton is an excellent signing from Salzburg. I know it's about 30 million, but excellent signing. Lewis Sinistera, I tipped to be my, you know, breakout star of the season. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but I still think he's a really, really good signing. Adams, Christensen, Roca, Giarbi, Gnonto, I think is a really good signing. Gnonto. Robles as well, coming in from Betis on a free. It's the outgoings that means this isn't an A. They've lost Rafinha, they've lost Phillips. However, they've replaced those players really, really well. You know, they brought in Adams and Roca to replace Phillips. They haven't just brought in one of them. If they would have brought in one of them, we would have went, look, it's a good player, but they're not going to fill that Phillips role. To bring in 2 players you can now rotate between fills me with a lot of confidence. They've also brought in Giarbi as well, and I'm not 100% sure what Giarbi really is yet. But Adams and Rocker, two really good players to come in to help replace Phillips. And Phillips didn't even play much last season with his injuries. Rafinha obviously has also left, and they brought in Aronson and Sinisterra to help replace that attacking output. So they've replaced the outgoings really well, and to receive 90, 100 million for them combined, I think it's really, really good business by Leeds. So I'll put Leeds into B tier. They've replaced those players incredibly well, and I'm quite impressed actually with how they've managed to replace them, because these players could end up moving for big money in the future. Next we will do Everton. Now Everton have also had quite a busy window. There was a lot of clubs that had busy windows, 5, 6, 7 signings this summer. Amadou Onana came in for 30 million from Lille, as well as McNeil from Burnley, Maupay from Brighton, Garner from United, Idrissa Gana Gueye from PSG, James Tarkowski on a free transfer from Burnley, with Conor Cody and Ruben Vinagre coming in on loans from Wolves and Sporting. Outgoings wise, they've lost Richarlison. And because they've lost Richarlison, I'm going to be putting Everton into the D tier. They haven't replaced him. They haven't replaced him at all. Neil Maupay is the only striker they brought in, and I'm not a particular fan of Maupay. And there's no way he replaces Richarlison. There's no way he replaces Richarlison at all. I like the signing of Cody. I like the signing of Tarkowski. I think Garner's an incredible signing. I think McNeil could be a very good wide player. I know maybe he doesn't always get the stats, but I do like McNeil a lot. Amadou Onana's an excellent addition into that midfield area. Idrissa Gueye brings that experience. But to lose Richarlison and not replace that attacking output, it just means I can't put them any higher than D. Their signings have been really good, but they needed a big striker and they needed a big attacker in, especially if Calvert-Lewin's going to be injured a lot of the time. And they haven't done that. If Calvert-Lewin gets injured, they've got Salomon Rondon and Neil Maupay. That doesn't particularly fill me with confidence. So I'll put Everton into the D tier. Next, we will go for Fulham, I think. Yeah, we'll go for Fulham. Fulham, I like a lot of Fulham's business. They brought João Palhinha in from Sporting for around 20 million, which I think is an excellent buy. Issa Diop from West Ham, which I'm not 100% convinced about, I'm going to be honest. Andreas Pereira from United, he started really well at Fulham, and I think will continue to for around 8 to 10 million. And Babbo in from Wolfsburg, I like. Carlos Vinicius in from Benfica, fallen off in the past few years, but did find some very high levels before that loan move to Spurs, which obviously didn't work out. Bernd Leno in from Arsenal is a top signing. Willian, we'll touch on him in a second, with Dan James Solomon and Shane Duffy and Levin Kazara, all coming in on loans. Outgoings wise, obviously Zambo Anguissa went to Napoli on a permanent after being there on loan last year. Fabio Carvalho obviously had that move to Liverpool as well, but apart from that, they haven't really lost many big first team players. Jean-Michel Seri never really worked out. So Fulham, I'm going to be putting Fulham into the D tier. D tier. No, we'll put them into the C tier. We'll put them in with Wolves. Some of their business is incredible. The signings of Palhinha, Pereira, and Babu, Vinicius even, Leno, Solomon I really like on a loan as well. I think they're all excellent. Kazara could end up, being good. We don't know what's going to come. But it's the signings of people like Willian that just make me sit back and question, why were they signed? It doesn't make sense for, he's 34. Shane Duffy on a loan's a weird signing and isn't someone that's probably going to keep you up. However, they've given themselves a chance of staying up, and they've started the season really well. I think Palhinha is excellent, as was said. They've given themselves a big chance of staying up and have started the season really well. And as a newly promoted side, that's obviously their only aim. So I think Fulham into C, because they have given themselves a very good chance of staying up, and I think they will stay up. Next, let's do Manchester City. Now, Man City, I'm putting Man City into the A tier. I'm not putting them into E, I'm putting them into A. For one man, basically. His name is Erling Haaland. Man City signed Erling Haaland for around 50 million. What an incredible purchase. They also brought in Calvin Phillips from Leeds, Manuel Akanji from Dortmund, Sergio Gomez from Anderlecht, which I quite like that signing actually, and Stefan Ortega from Bielefeld. Outgoings wise, obviously they lost Sterling, they lost Jesus, they lost Zinchenko, they lost Porro. Am I going to put them in A? Because they've lost 3 big squad players there in Sterling, Jesus and Zinchenko. They haven't really... I feel like... No, I'm going to move them down into B. I'm going to move them down into B because I feel like they need an extra attacker maybe in there. I feel like they need an extra attacker. I think the signing of Haaland is absolutely incredible. And that... No, I'm putting them back into A. I don't care. I'm putting them back into A. The signing of Erling Haaland just... It puts them as A alone. That's such an incredible signing to get over the line. You know, he will lead that attack for the next 10 years. And will take him to Champions League glory, I'm sure of it. Calvin Phillips from Leeds. While he probably won't play week in, week out, to bring on in those games like Real Madrid last season when they were winning 1-0. I get it's 45 million to spend for a player you might not need much this season, but for Man City, 45 million to win the Champions League, it's worth it. Akanji was an opportunistic buy, as we've been told. Gomez, I like that signing so he can develop behind, you know, Cancelo. I like their business, and even though I feel like maybe an extra winger or attacker was needed to come in, they brought in Erling Haaland. So we're going to be putting Man City into the A tier. Next we will have Southampton. Now Southampton, I like their business. They're going into C. They're going into C. I like Southampton's business, but there's a but with it, and we'll get that, and we'll get onto that in a second. Gavin Bazunu from Man City. Man City? Yeah, he was out on loan, obviously, at Portsmouth last year, wasn't he? Gavin Bazunu, excellent goalkeeper. He looks really, really good, and I like him. Sekou Mara as well. I think that's a top quality signing from Bordeaux. Romeo Lavia from Man City's under-21s started the season really well. I know he's got injured, but you know, when Chelsea are trying to, you know, bid £50 million on deadline day to get him in, shows how much of a quality player he is. Duje Kaleta from Marseille, like him a lot as well. Bella Kotchap, like him as well. Aribo, I think Essie predicted him to be the breakout star of the season, and I think Aribo looks incredible. Larios as well with Liss and Edozie also coming in. Ainsley Maitland-Niles on a loan as well. Outgoings, you know, they haven't lost anyone big. You know, Oriol Romeo, Bednarak on a loan, Nathan Redmond, Fraser Forster. There's nothing really big that they've lost. So I think Southampton to see is fair. They're buying a lot of young players. I love some of the young players they brought. However, it hasn't particularly taken away from the chance of relegation. They could still go down. I like their business a lot. And it could obviously come good, and it looks like it is coming good. However, for that kind of side to go into the B, you need to, like Leeds. Leeds' signings mean they won't go down, at least in my opinion. And Southampton still could. So because of that, I'm putting Southampton into C. And I think that's fair. They're a newly promoted side. They're not a newly promoted side. Sorry, they're a mid-table kind of side. That while they've brought some very good players, that hasn't 100% guaranteed their safety. So I'll put Southampton into the C tier. Next we'll do Crystal Palace, who actually had quite a quiet window compared to other people around the Prem. Czech Doucouré came in from Lens to be the Conor Gallagher replacement. Chris Richards came in from Bayern Munich, which I like that signing. Johnston in from West Brom and Eboué in from Derby. I think that's one for the future, obviously. Outgoings, they lost Benteke, they lost Koyate, they lost Kelly. Nothing really big they lost outgoing. Palace, I'm putting them in the C tier. Not for what they've brought, it's what they've managed to keep. They've managed to keep Elise. They've managed to keep Eze. They've managed to keep, you know, that centre-back pairing of Anderson and Guehi. They've managed to keep Tyrick Mitchell. Some of the players they've managed to keep, you know, it won't seriously help them throughout the season. So I'm going to go for Palace into C. For Palace to be a B, it would have been bringing back Conor Gallagher. I know they made that bid towards the end of the window, or at least it was rumoured that they made a bid towards the end of the window. That would have taken them into that B tier. However, without that, I'm not quite sure if Czech Doucouré will do that. I like Czech a lot, but is he good enough? I don't know. So I think Crystal Palace into C. We'll do Liverpool next. I'm going to put Liverpool into D tier along with their Merseyside counterparts in Everton. Darwin Nunez was a lot of money for a player coming out of Portugal and could still prove to us that he's a very good player. However, we haven't seen that yet. Fabio Carvalho is one for the future. Looks good, but not one for now to come in and start for Liverpool week in, week out. Same with Calvin Ramsey and Artemelo, I'm not a fan of. Losing Mane is a big loss. I know he was out of contract next summer, and if you didn't want to sign a new deal, it made sense to sell him to get that transfer fee. However, it doesn't take away from the fact he's a big loss. And Nunez won't replace that. Nunez isn't going to come in and replace that. They also lost Minamino. I feel like I feel like they needed one more attacker, one more winger possibly. I know they've got Salah, but he hasn't started the season well after that big contract as well, which you have to say. That big contract that they gave him in the summer he hasn't performed since that, so that has to come into this as well. And I think D tier for Liverpool is fair. It doesn't look like they're going to be challenging for the title as of current. And because of that, because they were last season and this season they won't be, it means they've dropped off. Or City have got better, which could also obviously be the thing. But I think Liverpool into D is fair. I like some of their business, but it's just not enough for a side of that kind of level. We'll do Aston Villa next. Now, Villa I'm putting in the D tier as well. Diego Carlos is an excellent signing from Sevilla, however he got injured very early on. And at the age of 29, it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from that injury. If he was 25, I'd be confident he would come back and it would still be worth it. However, with a season-long injury, which it could end up being, 29, how's he going to come back from that? Coutinho, you know what you're getting with him. It's inconsistency. It's a big-name player. But I like the signing of Coutinho. Dendoncker rushed signing. Same with Jan Bednarek on deadline day. Robin Olsen from Roma, good to come in as a backup keeper to challenge Martinez, of course. Augustinsson from Sevilla, again, I don't really see the signing. However, Bubakar Kamara is an excellent deal. Losing people like Chukwuemeka and Target, not ideal. However, Chukwuemeka obviously wanted to go for more game time and left to go to Chelsea, and that doesn't really make sense. And Target was always looking like he was going to go to Newcastle after his loan spell there last year. I just don't like the late rushed signings. The signing of Dendoncker and Bednarek, I don't like them. D's probably very harsh for Villa. Very, very harsh for Villa. Because, they brought in Philippe Coutinho, they brought in Carlos, and they brought in Kamara as well, who's an excellent signing. But they just don't have something. They don't have that main striker. I know they've got Danny Ings, I know they've got Ollie Watkins. But they don't have that striker to really impress me to take them to Europe, which is where Villa should be aiming to get to. So I'll put Aston Villa into the D tier. Next we'll do Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs had a very busy start to the window, but it did obviously phase off. They obviously signed Richarlison from Everton for 50-odd million. Romero officially became permanent from Atalanta. They also signed Bissouma, Udogie, who then went back out on loan, Jed Spence, Ivan Perisic, Fraser Forster and Clement Longley on a loan. Outgoings-wise, only really Steven Bergwijn and Carter Vickers on permanence of big loan people going out. People like Ndombele, Reguilon, Lo Celso, Udogie obviously, Winks and Rodon. Spurs, I'm putting them into the B tier. I think the signing of Richarlison, while it's an overpay, it helps to give, those front three rest. I know at the moment it doesn't look like Conte wants to give Son any rest, but to go with the front three of Kulusevski, Kane and Richarlison, he can do that and should be doing that. It allows him to do that, which he didn't have that option before, obviously. Bissouma, I really like the signing of Bissouma. And, he comes into a congested midfield alongside, the likes of Skip, the likes of Højbjerg, and there's one more who I'm definitely forgetting. Bentancur as well, of course. He comes into that congested midfield, but he's a very good signing. Romero obviously on a permanent, big to get over the line. And Ivan Perisic I do think will bring a lot of experience to that squad, a lot of needed experience. Bergwijn out, he wanted to go. I think it's been a very good window for Spurs. Yes, maybe they could have brought in a little bit more quality. But again, they're preparing for the future in the fullback positions, especially in Spence and Udogie. So, Tottenham into the B tier. Next, we'll do one that is, well, this is going straight into E. It's Bournemouth. It's not going into F because F is a whole tier for a whole different club, which I'm sure you can't guess who it is. Bournemouth are going into E. Now, this was close to being in F, however I did want to put someone in E. Senesi from Feyenoord I like, but the rest of it just, he hasn't been great either, Senesi, so far. Tavernier I'm not a fan of. Rothwell why? Neto on a free, decent keeper. Ryan Fredericks is average, as is Jack Stevens, who they brought in on a loan. I know they didn't lose anyone especially, but it just screams that they're just coming into the Prem, taking the 120 million, and they're happy to go back down. When your manager's getting sacked for speaking out against your transfer business, you know that things aren't good enough, and hence I can't put Bournemouth any higher than E. It's been quite appalling from them, in all honesty. So yeah, Bournemouth into the E tier. Next up, let's have Brighton, shall we? Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, they lost some big players this window. That's the first thing to touch on. They obviously lost Cucurella, they lost Basuma, they lost Mulpie, they also lost Ostergaard and Clark, but they're not, massive. The departures of Cucurella and Basuma, and possibly Mulpie as well, they are 3 big departures. However, Estupinan comes in to replace Cucurella quite well, I think. Enciso, don't know much. Enciso, I don't know much about him. I can't really talk about him. Gilmour, I think, is an excellent signing. Gilmour, I really do think it's a good signing. Adingra, again, don't know much about him. However, Colwell on a loan, another very, very good signing to bring in. Brighton, I'm putting them in the C tier. It's Brighton for you, isn't it? A couple of players that no one's ever really heard of. They've obviously got Undav back from the loan spell as well. Brighton into C. I think Gilmour does heavily carry that. If it weren't for Gilmour, possibly I'd look at putting them into the D tier. But Gilmour replaces Basuma. Estupinan replaces Cucurella. Undav, still to be seen what he can do. Is he the Mulpie replacement? Brighton still haven't got that big striker that everyone wants them to get. I think C tier for Brighton's fair. Had they gone out and got a big name striker, it definitely would have been B or possibly even A. No, probably B. But at the end of the day, I can't put them any higher than C. Next, we're going to do a club that we've actually done a full video about, which is Nottingham Forest. Now, there's a video on the channel of all 21 players, now 22 players that Nottingham Forest signed. So if you want to hear opinions on each of them, go and watch that, because I obviously can't do this now because that would take 20 minutes. Forest I'm putting into D. They've signed too many players. What's Lingard there for if you want to bring in Morgan Gibbs-White? The midfield, they've got Mangala, they've got O'Brien, they've got Freuler, they've got Koyate, and they've got people that they've already got there. They've got people like Cafu, like Ryan Yates. They've already got these people in the club. Outgoings wise, obviously, they lost Samba. That's really the only big outgoing of any note. I'm putting Forest in D. I really liked their business. However, it came a point where it was too much, and these players could possibly not gel now. Hence, into D. They've done too much. Individual signings, I like each and every individual signing apart from Lingard maybe, and I'm sure there's a couple of others that I'm not a fan of. But I just can't put them any higher than D because I think they have done too much, in all honesty. I think they've just signed too many goddamn players. Next, we'll go for Newcastle. Now, Newcastle first of all didn't spend as much money as everyone thought they would, bringing in 5 players at the end, with Alexander Isak being the big name signing alongside Botman, Target, Pope and Karius. Outgoings wise, they lost Dubravka, they lost Fernandes, they lost Gale, they lost Woodman. No big outgoings really. Newcastle, I think C tier is probably fair for them. Is C tier? No, we're going to put them into B tier. I really like the signing of Botman and I really like the signing of Isak. Target's a big one's getting off after the loan last season as well. And Nick Pope, you know what you're getting with Pope. Karius is also a decent keeper, regardless of what people want to say. I know people will meme it, but had it not been for that Champions League final, he would still be a top keeper and would probably be playing week in, week out for a side like Wolves or something. So Newcastle, I'm putting them into B. I think some of their business has been really, really good. I like Isaac, I like Botman, as I've said. They're all young as well, obviously, those two guys. So, they can build on them for the future. Botman can possibly be that company type that City had. Isaac can possibly be that Aguero type. I know players aren't identical, but what they mean to the club. And as I say, I like some of the business a lot. So I think Newcastle going into B. Could they have done more? Yes. Do I think they'll start to do more? Yes, when they start picking up sponsorships, which I'm sure they will soon, to help with FFP. However, I really like Newcastle's business. Next, we'll do Arsenal. Now, Arsenal are also going into the B tier. Gabriel Jesus is a top signing for Man City, as is Alexander Zinchenko. Fabio Vieira from Porto, good signing. I think he's looking really, really good. Matt Turner, obviously, and Marquinhos. Turner as a backup keeper and Marquinhos to be a young winger. I'm not sure how much game time he's going to get this season. Outgoings wise, they lost Guendouzi, they lost Torreira, they lost Leno, they lost Mavropanos, they lost Bellerin, Lacazette. Pepe went out on loan along with Tavares and Maitland-Niles. Arsenal into the B tier just because I feel like they needed another winger. They needed possibly another striker as well. They needed some more attackers to come in as depth. Jesus is an incredible signing, but I don't think he can play every single game this season. Saka already looks quite tired, and especially with the World Cup, he's going to be playing a lot of games. Martinelli you've got as well, who will probably be going to the World Cup with Brazil. I feel like they needed a bit more depth. However, the signings they did make, every single one of them is absolutely incredible. So, Arsenal to B, if you would have just got 2 or 3 more bodies through the door, good bodies of course, we're not talking Dendonka type of bodies. If you would have got some good bodies through the door, that could have obviously moved up to A. But for now, I will put them into the B tier. Next, we will go for another side from London, actually. We'll go for Brentford. Brentford, I really like some of Brentford's business, Keane Lewis-Potter from Hull is a really good signing, along with Aaron Hickey. I like that as well from Bologna. Damsgaard from Sampdoria, is he going to be able to come in and replace Ederson? I'm not quite sure, but I think he's a good player nonetheless. Strakosha to come in and push David Raya. And Ben Mee from Burnley on a free. Good business. The thing is, have they managed to replace Ederson? Their season picked up an awful lot last year. As soon as, they got Ederson through the door, he had that really good connection with Tony. And I'm not convinced Damsgaard will be able to replace that. However, I like a lot of their business, but just because they couldn't keep hold of Ederson, I've put them in C. I felt like maybe they needed one more creator to come through the door to help Damsgaard, to help Lewis-Potter. I don't think he's much of a creator, to be honest. But to help Damsgaard, is there anybody I can think of off the top of my head that could have done it? Not particularly. But they needed another creator to come in. And they didn't get that in the end. So I think Brentford into the C tier for me. Next up, we'll do West Ham. Now, West Ham obviously brought in Lucas Paqueta from Lyon for 38 million. They brought in Scamacca from Sassuolo for 32 million. Aguerd came in from Stade Rennais for 31 million alongside Cornet, Emerson, Kehrer, Downs and Areola. Outgoings, they lost Diop to Fulham for around 15 million. Yarmolenko, Fredericks also went. Vlasic and Masuaku went out on loans. And they also lost Noble as well. I'm putting West Ham into the B tier. I like their signings. I know they haven't had a good start to the season, but I think the signings of Paqueta, of Scamacca, of Cornet, they're all really good. Downs could turn out to be a really good player from Swansea. West Ham into the B tier, I think, is absolutely fair, and I think if it weren't for Paqueta, that would be C, possibly D. However, because of that signing, because of how many teams were chasing him, and the fact that West Ham have managed to get him in, it's a B tier signing for me. And second, not last but not least, second to last, we'll go for Manchester United. United bought in Anthony for 85 million, massive overspend, but a good player. Casemiro for 63 million, 64 million, massive overspend for a 30-year-old, but a good player. Martinez for 50 million, massive overspend for a player from the Eredivisie, but a good player. Malacia, I really like that signing for around 13-14 million. Dubravka, good backup keeper to come in and push De Gea. And Ederson as well, I think that's a really good signing. Outgoings, obviously they lost Pereira to Fulham. They sent Bailly out on a loan. Pogba, Lingard, Matic, Cavani and Mata all left on free transfers. People like Tellez and Dean Henderson leaving on loans as well. I'm going to be putting United into the B tier. They overspent on a lot of these players. They overspent on Anthony. They overspent on Casemiro. They overspent on Martinez. But they're good players. And if they improve this United side to get them into the Champions League, say, it means that they've been good signings and it means that they were worth the money that they've spent. And I think they could get them into the Champions League. So, I'm going to put Manchester United into B. And last but not least, we have my beloved Leicester City, who are going right into F. Oh, well. Deary, deary Leicester. Two players left the club two big name players left the club in Kasper Schmeichel and Wesley Fofana. Two players came in Alex Smithies and Wout Faes. It's just not good enough at the end of the day. And because of that, FD for me. But yeah, thank you all for watching this video. It's greatly appreciated. I know it was a long one, but I hope you all enjoyed it nonetheless. And yeah, I'll catch you all again in the next one. See ya!